Today, we're diving into a really weird modern mystery. It's a classic case of mistaken identity. But here's the twist. The lead investigator is an AI. And the prime suspect? Well, it might just be you and your own writing.
Okay, picture this. You've poured your heart and soul into a paper. Hours, maybe even days of work. You finally hit submit, feeling pretty good about it. And then, bam, an automated system flags it as AI generated. But you wrote it, every single word. So what in the world is going on? And believe me, this isn't just some made-up scenario. This is a real headache for students, writers, you name it, right now. So what we're talking about here is something called a false positive in AI detection. And that right there is the crime scene for our investigation today. It's that exact moment a machine gets it wrong and points the finger at a human. And yeah, it's happening way more than you'd probably guess. And this isn't just a few people complaining on the internet. Nope. Researchers are actually really worried about this. The big problem? These AI detectors are often like black boxes. We have no idea how they're making these decisions. I mean, if a machine's going to accuse you of something, shouldn't you at least get to see the evidence? It seems fair, right? All right, so to really get to the bottom of this, one researcher decided to play detective. They put together a big pile of evidence, a collection of 70 different texts. They got 35 written by actual humans and 35 spit out by AI, and they pulled these from all over: essays, articles, even Reddit. The whole point was to figure out what are the clues that these detectors are just totally missing. Now, you can't just solve a mystery like this with any old tool. You need something special. So a brand new, custom-built toolkit was created. It was designed for one thing and one thing only: to dig into the evidence and find what the other AI detectors were overlooking. The cool science behind this whole thing is called stylometrics. The easiest way to think about it is like forensic science, but for writing. You know how everyone has a unique fingerprint? Well, apparently we all have a unique stylistic fingerprint too. It's all about our own little patterns, the words we choose, how we build our sentences. Stylometrics is just the science of measuring those patterns to figure out who's who. And here it is, the tool for the job. It's called the Stylistic False Positive Analyzer. Let's just call it the SFP Analyzer. Much easier. So what's the big deal about it? It's totally transparent. It's a tool that runs right in your web browser, which means anyone, and I mean anyone, you don't need to be a coder, can just pop a text in there and see the analysis for themselves. No more black boxes. And just so you know, this wasn't some little side project someone cooked up over a weekend. This whole investigation, the tool itself, it was all part of a master's thesis in linguistics. So there's some serious academic brainpower behind this, grounding the whole thing in real established science. Okay, so how does this thing actually work? How does it find that stylistic fingerprint? Well, it basically takes a piece of writing and breaks it down, layer by layer. It turns this vague idea of style into a bunch of concrete, measurable clues that we can actually look at. And it's super methodical about it. There are 6 whole layers to the analysis. It starts with the simple stuff, counting words and checking sentence length. But it goes all the way up to the really fancy stuff, like looking for idioms and unique phrases. This way, literally no stone is left unturned. Let's dive into a couple of these layers just to see what we're talking about. Tier 2, for instance, is all about what you might call the writer's voice. It's looking for the little tells that show an author is right there with you, guiding you through their own words. There's this key idea here called meta-discourse. It sounds super academic, I know, but it's actually pretty simple. Think of it like the signposts a writer puts up to help you, the reader, find your way. It's basically the writer talking about their writing right inside the text to make sure you don't get lost. You see this all the time. Phrases like, for example, or however, or so in conclusion. That's meta-discourse. These are little breadcrumbs left by a human author for a human reader, and it turns out AI just doesn't use them in the same way. It's often less frequent or way more predictable. Okay, let's jump up to a more advanced level. Tier 5 looks at something called authorial stance. This is really about personality, right? It's about how much of their own perspective a writer puts in there. Are they super sure about what they're saying, or are they a little more hesitant? And we can actually measure this by looking for hedging and boosting. Hedging is when you use words like might or perhaps to kind of soften what you're saying. Boosting is the opposite. It's when you use words like clearly or definitely to show you're really confident. That back and forth, that expression of certainty, that's a superhuman thing to do, and it's what gives writing its unique flavor. Okay, now this is where it gets really cool.
The SFP analyzer isn't just a number crunching machine. It takes all of that complicated data and turns it into simple visuals. It literally lets you see the stylistic fingerprint with your own eyes.
Let's take sentence length, for example. AI writing can be kind of monotonous. The sentences are all roughly the same length. But human writing, it has a rhythm. It has what researchers call burstiness. We mix it up. We use short, punchy sentences and then long, winding ones. That variation is a huge clue that a human was at the keyboard.
And you wouldn't believe how much you can learn from just looking at pronouns. A simple chart like this can tell you so much about the writer's perspective. Are they using I and we a lot? That's a personal story. Are they talking directly to you? Or are they just describing stuff from the outside using he, she, and they? It's a dead giveaway.
And get this, even the tiny, boring words we use all the time, like the, of, and, create a unique pattern for each of us. Analyzing how often we use these little function words is actually a classic trick in stylometrics, and you'd be shocked at how good it is at spotting an author's personal habit. So we've looked at all the evidence. We've seen the sentence rhythm, the author's stance, everything. So what's the big takeaway? What really makes up this human fingerprint? And why are the machines getting it so wrong?
Well, it really boils down to this. We humans write with rhythm, with personality. We take a stance, and we leave little signposts for our readers. AI, on the other hand, at least for now, is just much more predictable. The tone is neutral, the sentences are uniform, it's not really interacting with you. And when you put it all together, you get a really surprising insight.
And here's the crazy part, the real irony of it all. The very things that make writing good, personality, nuance, a unique rhythm, those are the exact things that are tripping up these AI detectors. The machine sees all this human complexity, it can't make sense of it, and so it makes a mistake. It thinks this must be fake. Which leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. As AI gets better and better at sounding human, the game's going to change. It's not just going to be about spotting the robots anymore. The real challenge will be, how do we get better at recognizing ourselves? At proving that our own messy, unique, and kind of wonderful human fingerprint is, in fact, our own. Something to think about for sure. Thanks for tagging along on this investigation.